Saudi Arabia is known for its harsh climate with little rainfall and mostly desert and arid lands. However, a shocking phenomenon is currently taking place in the desert lands. Surprisingly, the desert is rapidly turning into fertile farmland, a development that has shocked even scientists. So, what is happening in the deserts of Saudi Arabia? Stay tuned to find out. Saudi Arabia has almost the same area as Western Europe. At 2.14 million square kilometers, Saudi Arabia is the 14th largest country in the world. Before we delve into the details of the reasons for Saudi Arabia's increasingly miraculous farmland, it might help to know how arid the country was to begin with. Saudi Arabia is actually famous for its scorching heat, drought, and deserts. In fact, it is home to the giant desert of Rub al-Khali, which stretches 693,000 square kilometers. There are not even any rivers in Saudi Arabia. It also receives very little rainfall. The country has never received more than 150 millimeters of annual rainfall. Because of this, large parts of Saudi Arabia have largely dried up. Until the late 1960s, only about 400 square kilometers, or 0.5% of the entire country, were fertile land. At this point, you may wonder how the country survived in terms of agricultural products. Before the country began to experience a breakthrough in the increase of agricultural land, citizens survived mostly by cultivating small fields, but only a few crops were grown. Other agricultural products were imported. Saudi Arabia is also famous for its rich oil reserves. Oil was first discovered in March 1934. At a depth of 14 meters, the oil well was extremely deep. As a result, the country quickly came to possess about 17% of the world's oil reserves, estimated to be around 75 million barrels of oil. Then the Saudi Arabian government decided that it could do more with its rich oil resources, and so began the miracle of rapidly expanding its farmland. Today, Saudi Arabia can be considered one of the modern wonders of the world. This is because the country, which used to be a hub for food imports, is now a center for the export of many products, including wheat, dates, dairy products, eggs, fish, poultry, birds, fruits, vegetables, and even flowers. But how did a nation comprised almost entirely of desert go from importing food to exporting food? What steps have the Saudis taken without our knowledge? There seems to be no magic behind the rapid transformation of Saudi Arabia's desert into fertile farmland. But this astonishing phenomenon is due to the Saudi Arabian government's agricultural projects. But what exactly have they done? Let's take a closer look at the tactical procedures and events that turned the desert into fertile land. They started by making significant technical investments as technological hardware was necessary. Saudi Arabia's agricultural sector has been revolutionized thanks to significant investments in initiatives supporting the latest agricultural technologies and rural infrastructure. In fact, the Saudi Arabian government aimed to move away from being an oil-dependent country, so they invested heavily in different sectors, with agriculture being one of them. Initially, they built facilities for dairy, meat, and poultry. By 1985, the country had achieved self-sufficiency in products such as milk, eggs, and meat. Over time, they not only became self-sufficient, but also significantly increased agricultural exports. During this period, they also produced a large quantity of milk, with each cow producing about 800 gallons of milk per year. Fish farms also saw expansion, established both on land and offshore, becoming major producers of shrimp. So much so that Saudi Arabia became a major exporter of shrimp to countries such as Japan and the United States. Additionally, thanks to the government's efforts, Saudi Arabia quickly transitioned from importing wheat to exporting it. The construction of wheat silos in 1978 facilitated a rapid transition to wheat self-sufficiency by 1984. Other cereals such as millet and barley were also introduced. After a while, grain production became so large that it had to be limited to conserve water resources. As agriculture and transportation techniques improved, the production of staple crops such as fruits and vegetables increased. Consequently, Foods such as tomatoes, watermelons, grapes, citrus fruits, onions, squash, and grapes grew in the region and played an important role in exports. During this period, the production of dates, Saudi Arabia's national food, also increased significantly. Some 500,000 tons of various varieties of dates were produced annually. To combat poverty and food shortages around the world, several factories in the country soon engaged in the production of thousands of tons of dates. The country has become heavily involved in international aid organizations, surpassing other countries as the second largest food donor according to the United Nations. It must feel good to be in Saudi Arabia right now. One of the reasons why the country's agricultural situation is rapidly improving is the government's support for the region's farmers. Farmers are offered interest-free loans and technical assistance. They have access to cheap fuel, electricity, and water, and can import farm equipment and supplies without going through customs. The government also provides attractive incentives for investors, including tax exemptions for foreign investors for up to 10 years. Investment laws passed in April 2000 further enhanced these incentives. None of this would have been possible without the efforts of the country's Ministry of Agriculture, which has implemented beneficial policies to assist local farmers. Saudi Arabia's Agricultural Bank, SAB, also provides interest-free loans and subsidies to help farmers achieve the best possible yields. In 1972, organizations for grain silos and flour mills were established, tasked with purchasing and storing wheat, establishing flour mills, and producing animal feed. Modern roads were constructed to connect agricultural areas to import markets. Additionally, the government funded research initiatives aimed at developing fresh food crops, increasing crop yields, and discovering new approaches to making crops resistant to pests. Local farmers and scientists collaborate in agricultural research facilities at several universities in the country. Since water is a crucial component of agriculture, Saudi Arabia's success in agriculture depended on both luck and creativity. The water problem was addressed in a highly innovative manner. Initially, aquifers were tapped into. Surprisingly, it was discovered that Saudi Arabia was not as arid as previously thought. Deep tube wells were drilled in urban and agricultural areas, becoming a historic source of water on which Saudi Arabia now heavily relies. Today, in their pursuit of lush greenery, Saudis heavily depend on aquifers as one of their primary water sources. Furthermore, Saudi Arabia has effectively utilized its abundant seawater resources. With coastlines stretching from the Persian Gulf to the Red Sea, the government initiated seawater desalination projects. Consequently, seawater was rapidly converted into potable water suitable for household and industrial use. The recycled water was also utilized for power generation, while water reuse for domestic purposes was integrated into the process. Water recycling facilities were established to facilitate this, with recycled water now predominantly used for irrigating agricultural fields. This is how the arid deserts of Saudi Arabia have been transformed into lush agricultural landscapes. You can share your opinion about this remarkable transformation in the comments section.